Yesterday I was reading this essay written by German philosopher Martin Heidegger. Actually, it was not written, it is actually delivered as a form of lecture and then transcribed later as a essay. And the lecture was delivered by him in, I guess, 1920s or something, in early 1900. What is metaphysics? And this word always have very strange connotations with it. When people use this word metaphysics, people are like, oh, it would be very difficult, or we don't know what it means. And I was like, let's check it out. It's not only the word, is also a verb. I mean, it's also, and it turns out to be, as after reading that essay, it turns out to be an action. I will explain what is it, but these things can be a little tricky to explain or understand, not because they are remote concept and very hard to grasp, but some things are tricky because they are so close to us, they are so real and near to us that we don't pay attention to them. They are so super normal, they are abnormal in a way that they are super normal. They are extraordinary, like they are so ordinary that they are extraordinary. And this concept, like metaphysics, I found it very interesting. I will share it with you. As Jesus says, those who have ears to hear, let them hear. If you have ears to hear, if you know what I mean, if you know what Heidegger means, if you understand, you understand. If you don't, I'm blabbering anyway. So, Martin Heidegger starts his lecture about what is metaphysics in a typical Heideggerian form. He disregards the question, says, oh, we will talk about metaphysics later. First and foremost, let us talk about nothing. So he says, forget metaphysics, let us talk about nothing. Nothing? What is nothing? You see, we normally every day we use this word nothing, just this and nothing. Oh, what you are thinking about? Oh, nothing. What everything? Oh, everything and nothing. Or, even science says only objects exist and nothing. Only matter exists and nothing else. Only object exists and nothing else. Only this and nothing. What is this nothing we constantly use in our everyday language so casually? So he says, let us inquire about what is this nothing. Is it mere an word in epistemology? It's a linguistical word that we use every day and doesn't mean anything? Or is it really something which we should notice and discuss about? So what is nothing? You see, you can make up a definition. Nothing is take everything and then disregard everything. Whatever you are remain with is nothing. Not definition. Everything, remove everything, disregard it, negate it, and what remains is nothing. Not definition of nothing. But if we try to inquire into this nothing in a logical manner, if you even try to frame the question, what is nothing? You see, its question itself is paradoxical. It's contradictory. Like isness and nothing are contradictory, are opposite of each other. You cannot ask what is nothing, because nothing is something which is not. So it cannot be is. You see, even very question cannot be formed or understood in a logical way, let alone the answer, logical answer. But the problem with nothing, the thinking about nothing, is our mind can only think about things, like apple and banana or concepts, Mind is trained to go outwards and think about something. Very moment we start asking question about nothing, we are going against our very essential nature of our mind. You see, very essence of mind we have to reverse. We are not habituated in this way, because mind is trained and habituated to think about something. So if we cannot grasp nothing through logic, should we end our quest? Because, by principle, logic itself says that you cannot think about nothing. You see. But Heidegger says that what is something, at least? Mind can think about something. Thinking, logic, is one of the function of intellect. Thinking. And whenever you have to think something in order to do logic, first you have to pose. First you have to pose that particular thing A. Right? X, Y, whatever. The logic begins with X and Y, or A or B. Right? First you have to say, propose an A, suppose an X, in mathematics. So this affirmation of X is negation of everything which is not X. You see, remember, we are talking about metaphysics, and first we will talk about what is nothing, and with the help of nothing, we will deliver into metaphysics. So we ask what is nothing. Nothing cannot be understood through logic, logic being one function of the mind, of intellect, and intellect, when posits something, when supposes something, when affirms something, it's already negating everything else which is not that thing, you see. So this affirmation precedes logic, right? Logic starts with X and Y, A or B, simple logic. But that logic, but the affirmation of A or B or X and Y precedes logical thinking. But as we discuss, negation precedes the affirmation. We have to negate everything else in order to proceed with affirmation, and then in order to proceed with logic. So negation is primary function, then affirmation. So logic is third derivative of mind. Logic is here, then affirmation, and even before affirmation we have negation. So negation is more primary than logic, 2 steps more primary than logic. This, be with me, this negation is also a function of mind, when mind negates, right? But what if negation is just a symptom of nothing? Be with me. What I'm trying to say is, what if nothing, in order to understand nothing, we have to negate our mind, or we have to presuppose that nothing already exists, and because nothing already exists, negation is just an effect. Just like the sunlight is the effect of sun, the sun of nothing constantly gives the rays of negation. So this action of negation, which priors affirmation, which priors logic, this action of negation originates into nothing, originates from nothing. Nothing precedes negation, negation precedes affirmation, affirmation precedes logic. Science works on the level of logic. We are tracing back our way of thinking, our phenomenological unfolding of thinking. We are slowly reverting it back from logic to affirmation to negation to nothing. This nothing already always exists. You can't think about it. You cannot reason about it. You cannot see it with your senses. You cannot think it with your mind. But Heidegger says you have to encounter this always already existing nothing. Like you encounter lightning, like you encounter sunset, like you encounter love, like you encounter joy. In the same way, you have to encounter this nothing, you see. And how to encounter this nothing? Because it is not conceptual. He says there are certain attunement. You see, be with me, any way of inquiry presupposes a certain type of mood, a certain type of feeling, a certain type of attunement towards reality. Like he says, science has this attunement of grasping. You see, first you are in mood of grasping things, take hold of things, and then you start doing science. You see, this mood, this emotion, this feeling of grasping precedes scientific inquiry. It's bias. You first have bias towards grasping, and then you start science in order to gain power over nature. But he says, what if we change this attunement? He says, even in our daily normal lives, very strange things happen sometimes. Like in the mood of profound boredom, he says, in this type of attunement, not of grasping, but of boredom. People are bored, genuinely bored. Not bored of X or Y, not bored of I'm reading this book and I'm bored, or I'm watching this movie and it doesn't interest me, I'm bored. But sometimes some people are bored of existence itself. They are bored of life. And this genuine boredom, what happens in this feeling, if you have ever felt that genuine boredom, the entirety of the world, the being as whole, the entirety of the world recedes back. You say, I am not interested in anything. Nothing interests me, we say, isn't it? Nothing interests me. You see, in the mood of genuine boredom, entire world recedes back. And we are closer to that nothing. We encounter that nothing sometimes. Partially, because we are not conscious about it. But in other moods, like the mood of existential anxiety, when everything around you becomes so strange, which once used to be very normal, this is a chair, this is a fan, this is an apple, things used to be conceptually normal, but suddenly somehow something happens to people and the, black cloud of anxiety falls over them. And this is not fear, by the way. Fear is about something. If anxiety and fear are very closely related, you see. Fear is about an object. I am afraid, or a situation. I'm afraid of this situation. I'm afraid of this object. I'm afraid of unknown, whatever. But anxiety is when everything becomes unknown, which used to be familiar, now is unknown. You don't know. You suddenly realize that you don't know what the world is. And this fear is universal. You see, now you are afraid of everything and nothing. And that is existential anxiety, a genuine existential anxiety. And in this mode of attunement, when you are supremely anxious, in Sanskrit, this is not in essay, but that's why we worship Bhairava. You see, this mood of Bhaya, the supreme Bhaya, that's why we worship Bhairava. I will talk about that more. But in this mood of anxiety, what happens is this uncanniness of the world oppresses us, This everything becomes indifferent. You can't even say that I am feeling anxious. You just have to say I am anxious. You see, you become anxiety. You're not only the world outside recedes into irrelevance when you are anxious. You don't care about anything. You just want to get rid of this extreme fear, this anxiety of existence. I say those who have ears to hear. If you have experienced it, you experienced it. If you have not, well, I'm just blabbering. In this mood of anxiety, when world recedes back and everything becomes, you become indifferent to everything, including your own ego, including your own self, you don't care about. You just are there, feeling that oppression of the entire world on your heart. That feeling, he says, is the genuine revelation of nothing. You encounter nothing firsthand. You see, when the entirety of being's world is negated, and you fall into this black hole in your heart of nothing, you become one with it. He says, if you think philosophically at that moment, you realize that this nothing is what the world is made out of. This phenomenological world, which we conceptually grasp as thoughts and ideas, is actually ontologically made out of nothing. And this nothing is not like here is the nothing and here is the world and nothing is separate from the world. No. Nothing is the world, you see. As Buddha says, emptiness is form, form is emptiness. Shunyata. Nothing is interwoven into this cosmos just like water is interwoven with waves, It is there like gold is in ornaments. World is made out of nothing, and not only the world, so are you made out of nothing. Your entirety of ego is just empty. Your entirety of personality just becomes empty. You realize it was already always empty. You see. Nagarjuna, anyone? But yes, you see, this nothingness oppresses us. And it is always there, hiding under this veil of anxiety. It is always there. If we are diligent enough to look deep within the world or within ourselves. You see. And what we find out is that even the normal cognition of subject and object is possible on this ground of nothing. Without this ground of nothing, the simple cognition of my ego cognizing an object, me as a subject cognizing an object, is not possible without nothing. This nothing shares the common ground between subject and object. And every cognition happens by this nothing. But we cognize every day, but we don't encounter nothing because we are afraid of losing ourselves into it. Not consciously, subconsciously. You see. This nothing is hiding itself and showing itself as the world. As I said, the first act of Shiva is hiding. In the previous video, if you remember, I don't know how Heidegger has read, Tantra, Trika, or Kashmir Saivism, but hey, he says nothing negates itself in order to create the world. Interesting. So without nothing, there is no cognition. Without nothing, there is no freedom. There is no selfhood, he says. Interesting. Anyway, our main topic was metaphysics. You see, what is metaphysics? Physics in Greek comes from the word physis, means nature. Meta is to go beyond. So going beyond nature. Physics is about studying how nature is. Science is studying how nature works. Meta is going beyond. By the way, in Sanskrit, it's a very interesting word. There's a para. Para also means, going beyond. Anyway, going beyond nature. He says, with this help of nothing, you see, this nothing transcends the world. In nothing, you can grasp the world as a whole. You see, how are you going to grasp the world as a whole? How are you going to conceptualize each thing in your mind and then you say, I understand this, I get this, I get. How many things are there in cosmos? Infinite. And of course, let's not talk about like future and past and the horizon of time here. I'm just talking about horizon of space. But if you, take in hold of time and space and how to get hold of all in one thing, not by conceptual thinking, but through this dreadful encounter of Bhairava, nothing, in the mood of anxiety, you take hold of beings as whole in your heart. You become one with that nothing. And just by the encounter of this nothing, by the leverage of this nothing, you overcome nature. Because as I said, as you encounter nothing, you understand that nothing is the ground of nature, and also nature exists within that nothing. Nothing transcends that nature. It's the ground, immanence, and transcendence. It grounds nature, reality, phenomenological reality as we experience ourselves and life itself. It is immersed in life, and it is also